This is part 2 of the Enuma Elish chapters, read by NoirThmpsn. Where were we? The Lord went forth and followed his course. He set his face towards the rage in Tiamat. He held a spell between his lips. A plant to put out the poison was grasped in his hands. Then he milled about him. The gods milled about him. The gods, his fathers, milled about him. The gods milled about him. The Lord approached to scan the insides of Tiamat and of Kingu, her consort, the scheme to perceive. As Marduk looks on, Kingu's course becomes upset. His will is distracted. His maneuvers are confused. And when the gods, his helpers, marched at his side, saw the valley in Tiro, blurred became their vision. Without turning their neck, Tiamat emitted a cry. Molten savage, defiance in her lips. Too important? Are you? For the Lord of the gods to rise up against you? Is it in their place that they have gathered, or in your place? Thereupon the Lord raised his mighty weapon, the floodstorm, and to the enraged Tiamat he spoke the following words. Why have you risen? Why have you arrogantly exalted? You have charged your own heart to stir up conflict. Lines missing. Sons rejoice their own fathers, while you, who have borne them, have forsworn love. You have anointed Kingu as your consort, conferring upon him the rank of Anu, not rightfully his, against Anshar, king of gods. You seek evil against the gods, my fathers. You have confirmed your wickedness. Though you have drawn up your forces, readied your weapons, stand alone, that I and you may meet in a single battle. When Tiamat heard this, she was like one possessed. She took leave of her own senses. In fury, Tiamat cried out loud. To the roots of her legs, she shook both together. She recites a charm, keeps casting her spell, while the gods of battle sharpen their weapons. Tiamat and Marduk, the wisest of the gods, joined the battle. They strove in a single combat, locked in conflict. The Lord spread out his net to enfold her. He let loose in her face the evil wind, which followed behind. When Tiamat opened her mouth to consume him, he drove in the evil winds, and she could not dose her lips. As the fierce winds encumbered her belly, her body was distended, and her mouth was wide open. He released the arrow. It tore her belly. It cut through her insides, splitting her heart. Having subdued her, he blotted out her life. He threw down her carcass and stood upon it. After he had slain Tiamat, the leader, her band was shattered, her troop broken up, and her helpers, the gods who marched at her side, trembled with terror and turned their backs in order to save and preserve their lives. Encircled tightly, they could not escape. He made them captives, and he smashed their weapons. They found themselves ensnared in the net, thrown into the cells. They were filled with wailing. Bearing his wrath, they were held imprisoned, and the 11 creatures, which he had charged with awe, the band of demons that marched before her, he casted into feathers their hands, missing lines. For all their resistance, he trampled them underfoot. And Kingu, who had been made chief among them, he bounded and accounted him to Uge. He took from him the tablets of faith, not rightfully his, sealed them with a seal, and fastened them with his own breast. When he had vanished and subdued his adversaries, he, missing lines, the vainglorious foe, had wholly established Anshar's triumph over the foe. Nudimu's desires had achieved. Valiant Marduk strengthened his hold on the vanquished gods, and turned back to Tiamat, who he had bound. The Lord trampled on the legs of Tiamat with his own inspiring mace, crushed her skull with the arteries of blood he had served. The north wind blew it to a place undisclosed. On seeing this, his fathers were joyful and jubilant. They brought gifts of homage to him. When the Lord paused to view her dead body, that he might divide the monster and do artful works, he split her like a starfish into 2 pieces. Half of her he set up as a ceiling of the sky. He pulled down the bar and posted guards. He ordered them not to allow her waters to escape. He crossed the heavens and surveyed the regions. He squared Apsu's quarter, the abode of Nademu, as the Lord measured the dimensions of Apsu. The great abode, its likeness, he fixed as Esra. The great abode, Esra, which he made the firmament. Anu, Enlil, and Ea, he made occupy their places. He constructed stations for the gods, aligning their astral likenesses as constellations. He determined the year by assigning zones. He set up 3 constellations for each of the 12 months. After defining the days of the years by means of astrological figures, he founded the station in Nibiru to determine their divine bands, that none might transgress or fall short. Alongside, he set up the station of Enlil and Ea, having opened up the gates on both sides. He strengthened the locks to the left and the right. In her belly, he established the zenith. The moon he caused to shine, the night to him entrusting. He appointed him a creature of the night, to signify the days, monthly, without cease, from designs with a crown. At the month's very start, rising over land, you shall have luminous horns, to signify 6 days. On the 7th day, reaching a half crown. At full moon, stand in opposition, in mid-month. When the sun overtakes you, at the base of heaven, diminish your crown, and retrogress in light. At the time of disappearance, approach you the course of the sun, and on the 29th, you again stand in opposition to the sun. Lines missing. It was Kingu who contrived the uprising and caused Tiamat to rebel and join the battle. They bounded him, holding him before Ea. They imposed on him his guilt and severed his blood vessels. Out of his blood they fashioned mankind. He imposed upon it the service and let free the gods. After Ea, the wise, had created humankind, he imposed upon it the services of the gods. That toil was beyond human comprehension, as artfully planned by Marduk. Did Nandemu create it? Marduk, the king of the gods, divided all the annunaki above and below. He assigned them to Anu to guard his instructions. 300 in the heavens he stationed as a guard.